There's no such thing as trans.
I'm not convinced that it's the real thing.
Trans rights activist disrupted a gender critical event, right?
And this is why I'm not a part of any group, because they all turn out to be full of it. What's up, everybody? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. All right, so I had to do a follow-up story just to let you guys know where everything's at and why it is I said the thing I said about not ever trying to be a group at my advanced age and with what I've seen. So here's the deal. That group, the LGB Alliance, may not be better than the TQ. And by the end of this video, I'm going to tell you guys exactly why I say the LGB is just as bad as the TQ when we're talking about the LGB Alliance. Because they put a post up on X today, just tonight, the artist formerly known as Twitter, that made me like, okay, I didn't think that's what we were doing. And I did tweet them about it, but I'd imagine that tweet is going to get crickets. All right. I'm a cheeseball. What do you guys want? Can I live, please? Anyway, we're going to get into that in just a second, but first I want to clear up that it was kids that they sent to do their dirty work as far as the trans activist groups went. It was a group called Trans Kids Deserve Better, and they're the ones that released the 6,000 crickets, which I'm going to take their word for it on 6,000 crickets, but it didn't look like no 6,000 crickets to me. And I know that's the Arizona coming out of me, the way I just phrased that, but it didn't look like no 6,000 crickets to me. So do what you want with that information. So here's the deal, right? I was very careful in the wording that I chose as far as what I clipped to make my thumbnail for that video yesterday, because I saw posts that were saying that LGB Alliance was an anti-trans group. And my thinking is, just because you're not for something or you don't think a group is a good fit for what you're putting on does not mean you're anti that group. So I chose not to use anything that used that particular language because I didn't want to misrepresent what I thought the LGB Alliance was. So Jack Jewell, who's a creator here on YouTube that I'm cool with, but at the same time, I don't know if I'm really feeling Jack Jewell when it comes to the whole movement situation, because the thing a person like me has going for them is I don't have to show loyalty to any particular group because I don't care if I get invited to their events. I'm not looking for a position in anybody's movement. With Jack Jewell, I think things may be a little bit different. I'm not trying to besmirch his name, and Jack Jewell knows how to hit me up if he wants to talk to me. I'll be open to hearing him on it, but I saw him on Brad Palumbo's channel, which Brad Palumbo is somebody that I like here on YouTube. He's more in the style of an actual journalist, which I tell you guys, I'm not an actual journalist. I'm not pretending to be a journalist. I do as much research as I possibly can do, but what I bring to the table is life experience and heart. I've known a lot of people from the entire spectrum as far as LGBTQIA plus goes. I don't like everything.
To us LGBTQPIA plus.
I don't stand behind everything. I definitely don't hang out with everything. But I will do as much research as I need to do on any particular subject to be able to talk about it in the video that I'm making or in the story that I want to tell. And so anyway, what I was trying to get at is Brad Palumbo was talking to Jack Jewell.
So Jack, how was this honestly crazy event? I saw it unfolding on social media, but how was it covered in the mainstream UK press?
And Jack Jewell was like,
very lightly, it wasn't a big story, but I just think one thing that's interesting is even in our more right-wing press, and I don't think it was through any fault, I just think there's a certain narrative we're used to hearing with this sort of language, in that it was reported that trans rights activists disrupted a gender critical event, right?
And then I watched Jack Jewell's video on it.
Hey everyone, it's Jack. Welcome back to my channel. I am here at the LGB Alliance conference. I'm going to speak to some of the attendees here and see what they think. Let's go.
I watched the whole video by Jack Jewell and I'm going to share a couple clips with you guys. And it is gender critical and it is anti-trans, because if you're saying that somebody isn't a good fit for the group that you're putting together, like I said, I get that. But if you're saying that that group isn't even an actual thing, even when it comes to adults,
The accusations of conversion therapy I think are really levelled at us by people who, for some reason or other, want to uphold the concept of transgenderism as if it's a real thing.
That's where I get like, just admit you're anti-trans and your group is anti-trans. Say it like you mean it. Say it like you feel it. Again, I'm not going to judge you for it, but at least be an accurate representation of what it is you're hanging out with or who it is they are. That's all I'm saying. It's not fair to be like, oh, you're just imagining this. And then you're saying things like,
there's no such thing as trans.
it's just like, you don't have to lie to kick it, bro. Because when you're hanging out with people and at that convention, there are people that are saying,
We're not convinced that it's the real thing. You know, we don't hold a space, if you like, for people who think that they're the opposite sex. There's 6 years of experience in this, and we've learned that some people take a good 5 years just to get their heads wrapped around it.
I don't really believe someone's born in the wrong body. I think that way of looking at life, you might have something called dysphoria, which really just means discomfort. But if you have a dysmorphia like that, shouldn't there be therapy to help you out of it, not down that pathway? So I completely reject this notion of true transsexuals. And I think what happens is we end up muddying the waters for this nightmare to continue for another 20 years. If we start believing that there are some transsexuals, then maybe the argument goes to fore that there's a group of transsexual children.
and I get it if you're going to say, I've talked about it before, the nature versus nurture thing when it comes to gay, like whether or not that's the way that we're born or we actually develop into that. And I'm on the fence with that. So I get what he's saying, but at the same time, neither of us are saying that we're not actually gay or that gay people aren't an actual thing. So just like gay can be an actual thing and nobody else has to understand it, because I know my straight friends, even though they fully accept me and they get me, they don't understand how I could be attracted to men like they're attracted to women, because being attracted to women is just as natural for them as being attracted to men is for me. So wherever it starts, however it happens, that's where we're at now. And yeah, they can't necessarily understand it, but they respect it and they're not trying to say it's not a thing. But when you say that about trans, then people could also apply that to gay too and say, oh, okay, well then gay isn't a real thing either. And then that was Frederick Schmink that said that. And I was like, this guy must really know his stuff, which if you can't sense the sarcasm, but I was like, this guy must really know his stuff. Let me see what type of doctor he is. Let me see where he went to school. Turns out Frederick Schmink, which sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Frederick. I know you're going to see this. Small world. You're not a celebrity. But anyway, Frederick has been living and working as a high school English teacher in Paris, France for the last 4 years after an initial move from his hometown of Eugene, Oregon in the United States. He studied history at the University of Oregon and later received a master's degree in education from Sorbonne. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, whatever. He has participated in a variety of political organizations over the years and enjoys drawing political cartoons to keep things light. One silver lining is that we're certainly not running out of all sorts of good material anytime soon. So he's an English teacher? That's what you're telling me? You're not even in the field. So what? Are you just reading a bunch of books in your spare time and this is what you've decided? You've read the Cass report, so now you think you're an expert on all trans people? You can read every book in the world. But if you're not a doctor, or at least some sort of mental health professional, it really makes no sense at all. And that's why I say that these groups are no better than anybody else. So then there's the other guy, right? That he was talking to, Keith Jordan, which Keith Jordan basically does the conversion therapy for trans people. And he says he doesn't do conversion therapy. So I'll just say he does exorcisms on kids that think they're trans.
That the power of Christ compels you.
Which again, if that's what you're doing and you're having some sort of success with it, great, cool. But he was like, I've been doing this for 6 years. And it's like, 6 whole years you've been doing this? 6 years is not a long time. But I'm not going to try to take away your credit or what it is you've done. Okay, you've helped a lot of people in 6 years. Let's say that. But it's still 6 years. So I went to go look into what his credentials were. He's not a doctor or a mental health professional either. He's just a person where his daughter was convinced by the cult, the LGBT cult, that she was trans and she started down that road. So now he's just a parent that tries to say save other parents and other families for going through what him and his family have gone through, which again is great. And if it's working for you, I'm happy for you. But at the same time, you're not a mental health professional. But either way, he's doing what he's doing, and I do understand that. But he's another one that goes into there are no transgender adults, which I agree there are no transgender adults. There are transsexual adults, though. Maybe he misspoke, and I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt for right now. Everybody I'm mentioning in this video, I'm kind of giving the benefit of the doubt to. And I know that they think because they're in groups, it's for them to judge me. I'm letting you know that I got my eye on you. Every group I've ever seen develop when it comes to the LGB space or the LGBTQ space or any variation of those letters
to us LGBTQ PIA+
has eventually ended up being corrupted because people realize that it's a money grab and it's also a position of power. And nothing will corrupt people like money and power. So this is why a lot of movements will begin to lose credibility with me, because you have a lot of people running around pretending to be experts on things that they're not experts on. Like I told you at the beginning of this video, I really do lead with life experience and heart. So I am not pretending at all to be a mental health professional. But do I believe that I have met a lot of actual transsexual people in my life? Yes, I do. Do I think the number of people identifying as transgender are at all representative of the number of actual transsexual people or people that are dealing with gender dysphoria that we have in this world? No, I don't. Not at all. I don't think it's anywhere close to the number of people out here pretending to be trans or calling themselves trans, telling you themselves that they're not dealing with dysphoria. And also when it comes to any kind of conversion therapy, I have already told people, I think the best thing to do is just basically leave your kid alone. If they need to go to counseling and talk to somebody just because they have a lot to sort out and maybe they are dealing with some sort of ideation, I 100% get you having your child talk to somebody. If you have a relationship good enough with your child where you can talk to them and they feel comfortable talking to you about everything, just be a safe space and a sounding board for them. That's what my advice would be. Again, I'm not a mental health professional, but the reason I say for parents to give as little resistance as possible is because I think a lot of times when we're dealing with phases as the kid point of view, because I remember seeing this happening with my siblings, I remember seeing this happen with other kids that I knew, and I remember this happening with me. And a lot of you may be able to relate as well. So you're a kid and you're stupid, right? Just like we all were. And maybe you're dating somebody that your parents don't think you should be dating. Like they think this person's bad for you. And so they tell you that they don't want you to see this person and they forbid you to see that person. Well, now it has just gone from possibly being a relationship that you were going to go through and figure out it was just as bad as they were saying, because in the end, a lot of times they were right, even though you didn't want to admit it and it was fun while you were going through it. When all was said and done, they were right. Not my point, but kind of my point. But what happened was because they gave this resistance, and maybe your partner at the time's family gave resistance too, but because their parents were telling them not to do it and your parents were telling you not to do it, suddenly it set up this it's us against the world dynamic. And then all of a sudden you thought that relationship was more important than it actually was because your parents gave you resistance for it and you felt like you had to assert yourself. You felt like you had to prove that you were your own person, even though you're a kid and you really weren't your own person and you really didn't need to assert yourself. But it's what you did anyway. And so that's what I think happens sometimes with the parents that give too much resistance when it comes to things like trans. Just let them go through their phase. Let them dress how they want to dress. Don't make any medical changes. Don't allow them to do anything that's permanent, and humor them to a certain degree. People always bring up Angelina Jolie and Shiloh Pitt, who was her daughter that was supposedly a trans kid, but it seemed like Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt just basically went along with it and let Shiloh dress the way that she wanted to dress, even though it was in the clothes of the other gender. Let her go through her phase, and now Shiloh's grown up and Shiloh is just a regular girl. Actually a really pretty girl, but she's just a regular girl. I don't know if she's lesbian or anything like that. I'm not in her business that way, but she's not trans. And so that's why I say that if it's at all possible, it's probably better to just give as little resistance as possible and let your kid grow out of their phase. Which I think if you don't give that much resistance, they're not going to give that much fight, because you're just like, yeah, I just need you to wait until you're old enough to actually make these decisions for yourself. And then once I'm out of the picture, you can do whatever you want. But as far as you wanting me to call you Bob, sure, Bob, I'll call you Bob. So what if I named you Melinda? I never liked the name Melinda anyway. Bob is a way better name. Do you mind if I call you Robert? It's a little more formal, but it's what I'm more comfortable with. Anyway, Robert, should we go get you a leather jacket? Which I joke, but at the same time, I really am a firm believer in just letting these kids all the way around grow out of or grow into whatever it is they are. The instance of people actually being trans, like I said, is very low. And this is going to fall out of fashion very soon. And I do appreciate the LGB Alliance on a certain level, because I understand that they're important for balance. Just like there has to be the crazy on the left, there has to be the crazy on the right. But I'm going to tell you what the real violation is for me. Because as far as I went, the agreement is, and what we're all trying to do, is let kids grow and develop the way that they're going to grow and develop. Leave the kids alone. Never mind the conversion therapy that they think is okay, which doesn't fall under leave the kids alone, but I thought it was leave the kids alone. So then I was on Twitter and I ended up seeing this little post from them. It's LGB Alliance at Alliance LGB, which tells you somebody must take an LGB Alliance before they got it. Neither here nor there, but I hate when that happens. I'm not Ty Rivera on Instagram. I'm official Ty Rivera, because some 15-year-old girl at the time, now she's like 20 something, but got Ty Rivera. She beat me to the punch. I hate her to this day. I tried to buy it off her let me not get into that. She wouldn't sell. Anyway, so this post says, if you are aged 13 to 24 and want to explore your feelings and discuss your experiences in a warm, judgment-free space, get in touch. This is a live chat text service where you'll be connected one-to-one to an experienced lesbian, gay, or bisexual volunteer. The lgbhelpline.org. 13 to 24? 13? We're talking to 13 right now about these matters, because I didn't think that was the agreement. And let me tell you, I know that I'm not alone, because they are getting eaten up in their comments right now. There are people literally saying the same kinds of things that I was thinking. And I ended up sharing it. I ended up retweeting it and being like, LGB Alliance, I thought we were leaving the kids out of this. And I told them that I'm sure that that post was going to get crickets. You know, even when I'm serious, I'm a troll. I can't help it. How could I not? Because you know they're not going to answer me. But what I'm trying to get at is 13 is way too young to be talking to these kids about sexual orientation or anything with the word sexual in it. Let their parents do that. Let somebody that their parents trust do that. And I say let somebody that their parents trust talk to them about it only because I know that there are single parents out there that don't feel equipped to talk to their child about it, because it'll be like a single dad and he's raising a girl and he's got a sister who's the child's aunt that could possibly talk to them about it and explain it in a way that he can't explain it because he's not a woman. Same with if it's a single mother and she's got a son and she's like, I don't know how to tell him to be a man or how these things work for a man. I only know from a woman's perspective. So that's the only reason I say that there are allowances for another adult that the parent has designated if they need it. But to go on some random helpline and start texting with an adult, which I'm not trying to say the LGB Alliance's intention is to be inappropriate in any kind of way, but I am saying that things like this leave it open for a or somebody that's got ill intent to come in and possibly be a volunteer, because that's the wording on it. You'll be connected one-to-one to an experienced lesbian, gay, or bisexual volunteer. So it's not even a mental health professional, a licensed counselor, just a volunteer. So for me, that's where things get a little bit dicey. And like I said, under no circumstances should a 13-year-old be talking to anybody about this kind of stuff outside of their family or their parents. I have a friend that moved to England, and he told me that the age of consent in England was 16. I don't know if that's all over England or if that's just where he's at. So if 16 is the age of consent, then I guess that's for you guys to decide, because I saw people in the comments saying wait until they're at least 16 for them to be able to have these conversations. 13 is way too young. Here in the United States, for the most part, it's 18. There are certain states where it's younger. So I would say that if you're going to be talking to them about that kind of stuff, I would wait until they're 18 and not what's considered to be a kid, because then you look like you're just as bad as the TQ. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. As always, it's been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.
They bought into his bullshit.